Hello, everybody. My name is Sarah Haas. I'm the Deputy Chief of Science and Resource Management. And I'm going to talk to you about our fisheries program. All of our fisheries staff were unable to be here today. So I'm going to be talking about an ology that isn't really my background, but some really cool success stories that are happening inside the park that will be pretty interesting, hopefully, for you and the people you're bringing into the park. So this is kind of a highbrow title, but basically we're just going to be talking about the cool fish in Grand Canyon. So I'm going to do a little overview of our native fishes in Grand Canyon, some of the threats to those fish populations, and then talk about what our program has been working on over the last decade. So the Grand Canyon is home to desert fish species, and these fish species evolved in disturbance-prone environments. They're usually pretty long-lived species of about 40 years. They're migratory and they have unique morphologies, such as the hump on the Humpback Chub. They're coming into some new habitats since the damming of Glen Canyon, and the stable habitats are really not what these fish evolved in. So pre-dam, it was kind of a unpredictable flooding habitat, a lot of turbidity, and then post-dam, we have habitats that are more suitable for non-native species that are used to clear waters with consistent flow patterns. So this is our native fisheries. We have 8 native species that have historically been in the park. And then 6 of these species are endemic to the Colorado Basin. 4 of these species are endangered. And we've already lost 3 of these species to the system. So aside from these novel habitats and changing flow patterns, one of the biggest threats to our native fishery are non-native trout, including brown trout, and it's labeled one of the top 30 world's worst invasive species by the IUCN. And it can thrive in altered habitats, and it's highly predatory. So this little guy on the bottom, I think, had 13 native species in his mouth and belly. This is the native range for brown trout, and then here's introduced range. And like I said, they do really well in altered habitats, and they're very hungry. That said, Grand Canyon is still a stronghold for native species, and we have 95% of the fish in the river are native species. And it's the largest remaining home to Humpback Chub in the basin. And we also have imperiled native suckers that are doing pretty well. That said, we still have to maintain our habitats and augment them to make sure that we have redundant populations in the system. So what are we doing to help our native species? One of the things we're doing is some non-native fish removal. I'll talk about that in Bright Angel Creek. And then tributary translocations of Humpback Chub. We're also doing razorback sucker surveys, but I won't really be touching on much of that. If you have questions, we can talk about it at the end, or I can get you more information. A lot of what we do is based on biological opinions that have been written about the Glen Canyon Dam, like the long-term experimental management plan that was finalized in 2016, and we have agreements with the Bureau of Reclamation to implement some of the mitigation measures to help our fisheries. So we focus on 3 main areas, Havasu Creek, Shinnemoo Creek, and Bright Angel Creek, going from Havasu, Shinnemoo, and Bright Angel. These locations were assessed over a decade ago, and they were identified as some really good potential best habitats for native fisheries. So that's where we've been focusing our energy. So the purpose of the Bright Angel Creek project is twofold. One is trout reduction, and we're trying to benefit the endangered humpback chub and other native fish in that system, and restore to the extent we can the native fish that once were in Bright Angel Creek. So we do that by two main actions. One is installing and operating a weir or a fish trap that's down at the bottom of Bright Angel that's near the Colorado. And then we do electrofishing inside the creek in the fall and the winter during the spawning periods. So it's about 15 kilometers of creek and 3 electrofish passes, so it's a huge amount of effort. There's just a aerial of the electrofishing crew, and then the weir down here at the bottom. So here's the extent and the different reaches. So we have crews staying along Based in Manzanita and Phantom, starting around October all the way till February. When we were doing consultation with tribes about our fisheries program, there was concern about the taking of life. So we use the fish that are removed from the weir and electrofishing efforts, those trout. They are used for consumptive uses, and we also work with tribes to feed them to eagles for ceremonial purposes. We also avoid Ribbon Falls Creek and the confluence, which is a really important place for the Zuni tribe. So just a little graphic representation of some of the weir results. It started as a kind of pilot study over in the early 2000s, and a lot of fish were caught. And then there was no operation, another try in 2006-07. And then over the years, we've tried to consistently install the weir. And Bright Angel Creek was determined to be the main reproducing creek for brown trout, so that's why it was identified as really important. It was feeding the main stem and also keeping native fish from being able to really thrive in that environment. So over time, we've kept the weir up since 2010, and we're catching less and less brown trout. Is that a fish crew person in here? So just a couple cool graphics. So brown trout have really been cut back since this started in 2012 consistently. Rainbow trout were never really a big part of this fishery, but they've also stayed at low levels. And then some of our native suckers really have started to show some positive trends in rebounding, as well as speckled dace. We are estimating about 85% reduction in trout since we started this project. And the native fish have exploded by 450%. So it's a huge success story. If there are any fisheries people in here who have worked on this project, thank you, because it's a big, big effort. Just a side note, since we started aggressively tackling brown trout and Bright Angel, in the main stem, brown trout are also at historic low levels. So the theory that they were kind of being pumped out through Bright Angel is pretty consistent with this data. However, when you whack a trout in one place, they're popping up in the Lee's Ferry area. So we're monitoring that system because it looks like those numbers are exploding, which could be problematic since it's a main stem population, and we don't want to have main stem issues or the trout to get into the Little Colorado. So another part of this fisheries work is humpback chub translocations. The largest remaining population of the humpback chub is in the Colorado River, and they live in the Little Colorado River. It's kind of the center of their universe. And in 2000, Valdez developed a plan to establish a second population of humpback chub in the Grand Canyon, identifying the top 3 tributaries. So the translocation task is basically looking at these three tributaries, so Havasu, Shinnemoo, and Bright Angel, doing baseline studies, collecting little baby chub from the LCR. Then they grow up, they get river swimming training, and we pit tag them in a hatchery, and then we translocate them to their stream. So the sites, the source is Little Colorado. Shinnemoo Creek has gotten a little over 1,000 humpback chub between 2009 and 2013. Havasu Creek has gotten about 2,000 for about 5 years. And then Bright Angel Creek in 2018 just got 116. So that's fairly new, but we wanted to make sure the creek was ready to receive them and they wouldn't just be swallowed up by trout. So this is just a size class. A lot of the trout were in the beginning years kind of this smaller size, and then in Bright Angel in 2018, we translocated a little bit bigger size. So far, Shinnemoo was doing good. Everything was looking good. They were growing, and survival was comparable to LCR. And then in 2014, the Galahad fire came in, and then there was monsoonal events, and it just pretty much flushed through that system and flushed out all the chub. So now it's been recolonized by some rainbow trout that are upstream, and dace are pretty much everywhere. But this is a place that we did have some success, and then fire came in and we're kind of back to square one on Shinnemoo. Havasu is a great success story. There's been almost 2,000 chub translocated. 51% have been recaptured in Havasu. They are another reproducing population of chub in the Colorado. So that goal of having a redundant population has been successful in Havasu. I'm not going to walk through this chart with you, but it is on the PowerPoint if you want to nerd out on sizes, class, and stuff like that. But basically, it's just showing you what's happening with the Havasu Creek population and that they are reproducing and making babies, so that was the goal. Yay. So Bright Angel Creek, it's really kind of too early to tell because we've only done one translocation. It seems to be comparable to the survival rates of that size class from the Little Colorado, but we're planning to do another translocation this May. So we'll continue to monitor Shinnemoo Creek and hopefully prepare that stream again to receive fish, but for now we have to get rid of the non-natives and make sure the habitat is good to go. Havasu is doing really well. We may augment that population if it dips too low, but right now they seem to be reproducing on their own. And then Bright Angel, we're going to continue the trout removal project and then do the second translocation this year. So just conservation implications, successful mechanical suppression of invasive species with sustained effort. It's a huge effort, but it also has some really good success stories for our native fishery. We're able to establish this humpback chub population and provide some redundancy to that population in case the Little Colorado gets wiped out. We have another place that they're successfully reproducing. It does help us understand these novel conditions in the system and what we can do, especially in our tributary areas, to conserve native fish. And we have tons of partners. I just want to say thank you so much to GCC. Been a big supporter of this work financially and just with technicians and volunteers. And then Emily Omana can be contacted if anyone's interested in volunteering on any of our fish projects. So this PowerPoint's on the website, I believe, or will be soon. So I'll answer questions, I guess, at the end. But thank you very much.